This is my Specialized Allez. I think it's from 2005, and it's an aluminum bike with the Team Gerolsteiner. It's like this German water Sprudelwasser company, and this is a bike that I had for many years and I used a lot, and it also became a parts bike, so I kind of stole things like the cassette from it, or the chain rings, or the bar wrap, as I needed it on my other bike. So this thing has been collecting spider webs and dust, and so now I'm finally actually restoring it and trying to get it into a state at which this thing is going to be a nice bike again. Just cleaned everything down on the frame, and got a lot of the grease and stuff out. I haven't cleaned the wheels because we're replacing the wheels, but yeah, everything else I spent a lot of time just kind of going through it, trying to get as much of the dirt off as I could. Yeah, there's still some scratches from over the years, but I think that's part of the character of this bike, so not really gonna do much there. But yeah, it's looking really clean, a lot better than it was. This is the other side, and you know, I think it's really beautiful. And it's a lot of fun getting to restore this thing. So yeah, this is the bike. And then I did also finish working on the cranks. So took the crankset off here and I sanded it down. Dremel really helped speed up the process, and I just gave them a fresh respray of paint. So now this thing looks a lot cleaner than when it originally was on the bike. Had a lot of wear marks and chips and stuff, so got a nice clean coat of paint on that side. And then for the sake of being thorough, also got a coat of paint on the other side. And yeah, I'm liking how that's looking. And then did the same thing on the other arm. So you got this thing all painted up. I did have a little bit of a paint run right there, but was able to kind of get a decent amount of it out. I've got 2 coats of paint on both these things right now, and I'm just letting them dry, and I think they're gonna look really nice on the clean bike. So yeah. got this rear brake successfully set up. I need to adjust the tension in this cable, but got these pads aligned with this rim, and got the cable housing trimmed to length so that it's able to go from the top tube into the actual rear brake caliper. Got the cable housing for the front brake also determined the amount of housing needed for that. So now I'm going to tape this into that nice little socket right there on these clamps, and then it routes down into the back right there like so. So that's looking good. And yeah. Right, another thing I'm doing is transferring the tire and inner tube from the original wheel, and this one was a cracked rim, so I can't really reuse it. There's an example. That right there is a sign that you need to replace this. So I'm going to be taking these quick releases as well. Yeah, so this is the replacement rim I have, and I've already got a cassette on it. That's an 1128 10-speed. And these are Shimano Tegra hubs, even though the lettering's kind of wearing off, but these are really nice hubs, and Mavic Open Pro rim. The inner tube and tire also appear to be in pretty good condition, so looked at the wear indicators on that, that looks good. So I'm going to keep at it and get all these parts transferred, and then that'll help me set up this rear brake tension on this cable so that we get that good. And yeah, so things are coming along nicely. Okay, and so got the new rim mounted, quick release installed, got a cassette in there too, so now that's pretty cool. This new rim is, take that away, rotates very nicely. It's got some really nice bearings in that hub. I'm very happy with that. The other thing is that I've got the brake caliper now fully mounted up, and I've got the brake cable housing, used some electrical tape in here to hold that in place. So now when I pull this lever, it stops. I've got the brake cable routed underneath the top tube, and that thing is looking great. It's got good feel, I like that. And now the final touch for getting this rear brake on is going to be just cutting off this excess cable housing and putting on a little clamp on the end of this just to hold it in place. So we'll do that now. So next up here, we are going to be taking off this front tire and putting on a the same Mavic Open Pro rims with the Shimano Tegra hubs. Also going to be swapping the quick release. This already has an inner tube in it, so I'm going to be just replacing the tire. I do have a replacement tire right here that's basically brand new, 23 mil on the front. And yeah, then after I do that, I'm going to be working on getting the brake cable housing set up and routed, and also cut to length to make it into there so that we can get a working front brake as well. So I got the brake cable routed through here so it goes into the actual caliper, and now what I'm doing is I'm adjusting the brake pads to get them to actually sit onto the surface of the rim while this thing's spinning. new rims mounted. The new rim had this 10-speed cassette on it, and I've also got the brake all set up with new cables, cable housings, and they're mounted up into these shifters. The new bearings on these hubs are gorgeous, as you can tell. They're just spinning very freely, which I like to see. And then, yeah, this brake works, so if you want to see it, that. Might have to do a little bit of adjusting, but I like that. And yeah, same for the front. Got this guy all set up and working as it should. So good progress, working brakes, that's very important. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to be doing here is getting this chain sized up. I don't know how many lengths I'm going to be needing, so that's going to make things a bit more interesting here. So I do have my 10-speed chain. This comes with a master link, that little black thing right there. And so these master links, if you have a chain tool like this, you can press it together to quick release your chain to take it off. The alternative to this is you have to use a chain breaker tool to actually push the pins out of these things, and it's irreversible. So having a master link is always really nice. And the other thing that will be really helpful is needle nose pliers, because sometimes these master links can be a pain in the butt to actually push together. So I've had the best luck using these pliers to really force it together sometimes, but to still make sure it can bend. So these are all the tools you're gonna need. And yeah, so the other thing that's also very helpful as a little tool to make is a gauge. I don't know what you call these. Literally just take some wire. You don't need to spend money on this. Just take some wire, bend it like this, and you use this to hold your chain together while you're mounting it onto the chain rings and the cassette back there. So this thing will be very helpful for us also during this process. And now we can get started actually installing this on the bike. So the trick when you're sizing up a chain is to first lay it down to the smallest cog you've got on your cassette back here, so as your smallest chain ring. And so what you've done in this situation is that you've basically you're figuring out what is the maximum number of chain links you can have in your chain. And what you're looking for is underneath this derailleur, you want to check if you still have a little bit of a gap. And if you do, this is where this tool comes in really handy. So if you look at this, this tool is about the same length as that. So if I was to accept this current length, I would punch out that pin. So this is the pin at which, what I did is I kept moving this thing down until we had a tiny gap right there. And so this is now telling me that the maximum number of chain links I can have to still have a little bit of tension in my chain is this whole length minus all this stuff from there on out. So what I'm going to do now is going to take my chain tool and push that pin out so that we can then use a master link to connect these two things together. Also, these SRAM master links have arrows on them, so it's saying that it wants to be going this way. So if I was to install this, I would make sure that this pin, because as you're pedaling the chain's moving that way, it's going to go in like that. So it's going to punch in like that, not this other way around, because the SRAM master links are directional. Okay, for me, I think I found the trick here, which is to use needle nose pliers sideways, use my little chain tool like this to create some slack, place this guy around there like so, and this thing should come together. There you go. Beautiful. Okay, that's always the hard part for me. So this is the trick. Needle nose pliers with a bit of a fat side. Turn it a little bit sideways like that to the chain and then press together. And this will help you force together your master link. And just to double check that your length is still good, you can see we've got just a tiny bit of gap between this and the bottom of our rear derailleur, which is good. Up next on this bike, what we are going to be doing is installing the gear shifter cables and housings for the front derailleur as well as the rear derailleur. So I gotta figure out how long should these things be, and you also gotta make sure that you can turn the bars like this and it won't pull out on either side. So I have 6 ferrules because in addition to the 2 cable housings up here, there is one more cable housing that will loop back into here for this rear derailleur. So I have cable housing here that I can begin to cut. It's also good to have something with a very sharp point on it, like a pick, because after you cut it, you need to make sure that you've got an opening in here to slip these new cables through. So that is what we're going to be doing in this video, is getting the cable housings measured to length. That's probably the first step, and then the next step is going to be actually installing these cables. And it is good to use a little bit of grease on the cables when you're putting them through, because the grease helps add some corrosion protection to these cables and helps them slide easier to maximize the lifespan, because these cables do break and fray up, especially inside those shifters. So you're going to want to make sure that that is as buttery smooth as possible to get the best shift quality too out of the bike. So that's what we're going to be doing starting now. So we've got these cable housings cut to length now. I don't know why, but for some reason, I know how much distance I like to see between the two. So I got that. And yeah, this is how things should look. The right shifter, this cable housing, does this thing where it loops around and kind of doubles back underneath to get here. The way you make sure you have enough cable housing is that you rotate these bars, and you do not want these things to pull out. So as you're rotating these bars, as long as this thing doesn't pull out, you're in good shape. And then in theory, both cable housings will be the exact same length, because it is the same distance to go from here to this one as it is on this other side, because it's symmetric. So you can just double check this. You rotate the bars and you should see if this guy pulls out, which he is not. And yeah, so that's a good sign. So now we can continue with determining what length is needed for this guy, and I'm just going to use this old, or not old, but whatever brake cable housing that I have here to get a rough idea of the length. Usually you want it to make a decent loop like that. So that's about as much as I should cut. And so we'll go do that for the rear derailleur as well. Is the indexing of the rear derailleur. So we've got the cable appropriately tensioned, and it's able to shift in and out of all these gears according to what you press on the derailleur. So that's cool. Brake is also still working, which is good to see. This bike is definitely almost a bike. And so things are looking really good here now. So was able to get this thing into all the correct gears, and even though this is a long cage, it appears that the chain length is long enough, which I'm really happy about. The new derailleur is working really well. Now I'm just going to trim off the excess cables. And I got the inboard and outboard limit adjustment screws set on the front derailleur as well as the rear derailleur, so this thing will just barely let you get it into the most inboard cog back here, so like that. And yeah, I think we've got a working gear set on this bike. Very, very happy about that. And that was a lot of troubleshooting, but glad we were able to get both of these shifters indexed correctly, as well as these brake cables. So now I think we're nearing the end of this and we can begin wrapping this thing up.
I cannot persuade you that my affection,
Just got this thing finished on this side, and got the end plug pushed in, and I'm really liking how it looks. And it's a really nice grippy material with cushioning that comes from all those gel pads, but yeah, feels really nice, really happy with it. I think this bike is just about done, so I'm gonna get this other side and I'll be ready to take a last look at this thing once it's finished.
I cannot persuade you that my affection, equals my desire. I cannot persuade you.
After many weeks of taking stuff apart, cleaning it, replacing what needs to get replaced, we have finished this restoration, and I am super happy with this bike and how it turned out. I just finished putting on this bar wrap after getting new rubber hoods on these shifters and making sure that everything was cut to length. So we've got brand new gear cable housings and brake cable housings, as well as gear cables and brake cables. Put in some brand new Tektro brake calipers on the front and the rear because the old ones were beginning to stick a bit. So now we've got some good solid brakes on this bike. We've also got a Shimano Ultegra 6500 rear derailleur back here to handle these 10 speeds on this cassette. This cassette's an 1128, really nice condition on those teeth. The wheel set that I also just replaced has these Mavic Open Pro rims with Shimano Ultegra hubs, and the tires are in good condition, so really nice wheel set. Also got the cranks on here resurfaced and painted, so they look really nice, and then these chain rings are basically new, so got a lot of life left in them. Chain is also brand new. It's a SRAM 10 speed with the hollow tooth or hollow pin thing. That's pretty cool to save weight. I've also got a nice Shimano 105 front derailleur that was originally on the bike. That's still in great condition. You can see these gear cables are really clean and brand new, so that's really nice. And yeah, tires are also on this bike brand new. The front has a Specialized 23 C or 23 mil width tire. It's specialized for triathlons, I believe. And then yeah, cleaned up the frame, and that's what a front view of the bike looks like. And I still really like this seat post that I got for this thing too. I think it's awesome. And yeah, it's also a specialized seat with gel, so it's really comfortable. The gear cable housing also back here has been cut, got new ferrules, and yeah, so this thing shifts well, brakes well, and I'm really happy with how this thing turned out. Williams stem. I got this as I was getting older, because this used to be my bike that I would ride a lot. As I was getting taller, I just threw on a new stem, a longer stem, and a longer seat post, so this is what the bike looks like. And yeah, I really like this. It's also got the carbon fork with the dampers. I think they call these like the Zerts. It says it right there, the Zerts viscoelastic damper on the front and the rear. And yeah, really happy with this bike. And thank you all for watching. It's been a lot of fun to work on and restore, and it's brought back a lot of good memories. So yeah.